So imagine that you're in a killer's house, right? This is for all the true crime people. You finally escape and you go to get help and you realize the whole neighborhood you're in is full in a safe haven for serial killers. Where Monsters Lie is going to be the first story we're going to do to kick off the Halloween season on this page. First and foremost, I got to give a shout out to Leah for recommending this to me. This was a stellar choice. She'll be tagged below so you can check out her content if you want to. And shout out to Aphrodite's Nails. They stay with the quality and creativity. So pretty much this comic starts off at the end of like a horror movie. You know when the final ones finally escape? That's what these kids up here are. And you see these boys, they're like, we gotta go get help. But the black boy's like, we need to get out of here. You know, you hear the gunshots from the house. They're coming out behind them. And see, of course, I'm with the black boy because first of all, if I'm just traumatized, I need to get off the block before I try to look for safety and get help. Because the block is still too hot. But of course, these boys, they want to be Captain Save-A-Ho. So they go up to this grandma's house and they're like, what's up, G-Way? And just thinking of like going to your neighbor's house, I would never go that close to the place that was just my hell on earth. So the boys are just like pouring everything out there like, you know, he's killing some boys right now, but we're the ones who escape. And you see the black boy, he's observing from a distance. Because let's be real, after trauma, you need arm's length of respect. The boys are just like the psycho next door kidnapped. And then this grandma is pretty much like, who wants shish kebabs? And she impales the boy and it comes out through his eyeball, letting us know that this ain't no safe space. And now, so his friends run away and she's like, boys, where are y'all going? So then this bitch come walking down the street with Slappy from Goosebumps talking about y'all want to hear a killer joke. And girl, she was like, and the punchline is y'all, and just hits him in the throat with a knife. So this boy, he's trying to escape, and then he turns around and you got the Jolly Green Giant behind you. And this black boy is like, I am so lucky I did not follow them Captain Save-A-Ho. Next thing you know, this guy named Wyatt, he comes running out in his robe, and I'm like, what is you doing? And he's like, Zell, which is the old lady's name. He's like, are you all right? I heard gunshots. And he's like, pretty much, what is that noise? And then Grandma Zell was like, Professor Puzzle Man, which is the house that those kids were escaping, brought his work home. And then as you see down here, the killer comes out, and he's like, don't worry, I got the rest. After they just did the hard manual work, not with a gun. And the grandma's like, I hope Baphomet can eat the rest, which is from what I'm getting, some type of like beastly hound that eats human flesh. And pretty much grandma's just tired of his bullshit. So then as the other people are collecting the kids' bodies, the grandma's like, is this all of them? And pretty much, he's like, yeah, I think so. But we as the audience know that my man has escaped. You see, it says private property, no soliciting and all that shit. So you know this is a different type of neighborhood. It's like an enclosed compound type of stuff just for these specific type of people. But since chaos has been brought to this, even though they're all like walking chaos, grandma's like, I need to call a house meeting. So we gather all the serial killer neighbors together, and now grandma's about to lay out the rule. Check out part 1 so you know what we're talking about for context for part 2. So after the chaos that just transpired in part 1, Grandma Zell, pretty much she's like the elder of the community. She's like, we need a town meeting because we got some rules and regulations in this HOA, because yes, even serial killer communities have HOA. And as we look around here at this meeting, we see that we have a clown here, which is the most obvious interpretation of the notorious John Wayne Gacy, who was a real life serial killer. But in this iteration, this version, his name is Richard. And he's like a serial killer that just like fails at life. You're not even good at killing. But even for the clown, he's like, this nigga with the bear on top of his head, he is creepy and I am scared. And you know you're saying something if you can creep out a creepy fat clown. But Zell is like, of course he's creepy. He's a serial killer. His name is Master. And it's the F word and then Master. But this is where we begin to learn about the sanctuary of what they call. And it's called Wilmhurst Sanctuary. And it's a safe place. So pretty much think of it like this. After a killer kills somebody, right? So think of Ted Bundy, Ed Gein, all of them hoes. After they did all their horrific crimes, imagine them having a suburban community they can go to where they're protected. And it's not even like they're protected from the law. It's just nobody knows about it. So it's kind of just like out there. But within this community, they help prepare for their next murder sprees and excursions. And they like have a real working system. Like for an example, say you know how at the end of every horror movie, when the monster or the killer like Michael Myers is beat and he's laid out, and then all of a sudden he disappears? Well, this lady Zell, she says, we drag you away when it looks like you're dead before the authorities arrive, and pretty much nurses the killers back to health. You know, they get groceries. It's pretty much a safe haven for these moms. And pretty much why grandma's so mad, because she's like, y'all do y'all dirt out there. But this is safe space, so you don't shit where you sleep. And that's why they're looking up here at the puzzle master, because he brought all those kids back to the safe haven, and it's like pretty much you're gonna ruin our fortress of solitude. And the grandma's also mad because as killers, a lot of them gotten soft, and he didn't have no good plan this year. She's like, it's not my fault that you don't have no charisma or creativity to lure people to you out in the world. But see, the only thing you have left now is your wee trapper. That's not inappropriate TikTok. I'm speaking in French. But if y'all can read between the lines, y'all know by what I just said how he traps kids. Yes, this takes it there. We're not talking about villains, we're talking about serial killers. But then this other killer named Pack Rat, he's like, what does she mean by that word up there? I can't say it because, you know, TikTok will filter me. And side note, I think this killer right here, he's inspired from Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs. But Puzzle Man is like, mind your business. So then as we progress through this meeting, Zell is like, I know a lot of y'all was wondering who's going to be working Friday the 13th. And she picks Daniel Dawson. And if you don't get the reference, Friday the 13th, her and him are like real close. Jason Voorhees and his crazy ass lunatic mama. I think that's who Zell and the boy in the orange are inspired from. And the other killers, you know, they salty because Friday the 13th, that's like they Christmas. And so only one of them is working. They low-key salty, but she's like, honey, I said what I said. Enough shit's been happening. Honey, meeting's dismissed. But this killer, he's wandering down here. The one who looked like Richard Ramirez. I don't know if he's inspired by him, but we're just gonna call him that. But then this killer down here, he's like, why would the people in the community have a carnival on Friday the 13th of all days when Dawson ain't never been found and he killed 40 people last time? And the old lady's like, honey, if I knew why humanity worked the way it would, we wouldn't have to kill these people half the time. So then everybody's leaving out the door, as y'all see. So then you have people over here like Richard, who before he leaves, he's like, Grandma, can I talk to you? And they're talking, and he's like, what if maybe I should add a flamethrower to my gig? And she's like, bitch, pretty much you're a clown. She's like, you're a clown, do clown stuff, make balloons, poison popcorn. But he's like very disenchanted with being a clown for all these years. And Grandma's like, well, you're the one who chose to be a clown, and that shit sat in my soul. Tell that to my dad. So now it's after the meeting, and they're going on a little midday, early evening stroll through the neighborhood. And they begin discussing how some of the killers have lost their bloodlust. Like this one, F-Master, he likes to garden now. You know, pretty much it's not the same as the glory day. As they continue to walk through the neighborhood, something's afoot. A new family is moving in. And the grandma's like, I only said one of y'all come. And they're like, the home was infested with fleas. The old dude who looked like Professor Xavier. And the guy standing next to grandma's like, y'all worried about fleas, but you and your kin live in the walls of your family's ancestral house. And then coming from around the truck, the grandma's like, is this your nephew too? And we finally see who this family is inspired by. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre cannibalistic family. And the grandma tells the old man this is unacceptable because the grandma's pretty much like, there's only room for one shape in this neighborhood, and them using the term the shape is also a reference to Michael Myers because they were originally called him the shape in Halloween. And the grandma's like, I hate hillbilly cannibals so much. So now a lot of change is happening in this neighborhood, and speaking of change, Linus is with the police. So now that we acquired that in the last part, Leatherface and his family pretty much moved into the neighborhood, let's go to the only sole survivor of the earlier massacre. So pretty much the black boy from the beginning, his name is Linus, we discover. And when he was doing his report at the police station, it flagged, I guess, the internal investigation people for serial killers. And this guy who, you know, like hunts serial killers, he's like, we think that you may have survived the puzzle man. And the boy is just pretty much giving him a recap of everything he went through. And when the officer's like, okay, well, show me where the puzzle man is, the boy says, I'll show you where the others too. And he's like, the others? Hold up. And he's like, what you mean the others? And they was like, the lady next door who killed my friends. He was like, there was an old lady, a lady with the doll, and a big... Here's a flashback from earlier. The lady with the doll, as we remember, this old hoe, and the big dude, aka Jason Voorhees. And pretty much you'll see down here, the detective is pretty much like, he starts describing the dude with the big dude, Dawson. And Linus is like, how do you know? Which is foreshadowing and telling us that maybe this officer has had a run-in with these people before, or he could be a survivor. Back at the compound, Puzzle Man is talking to Richard Ramirez, aka his name is St. Julian. I don't think he's inspired by Richard Ramirez. I just say. And Puzzle Man is just salty how Granny called him out pretty much in front of everyone. And remember, because the black boy got away earlier. And remember when Granny was like, are you sure everyone's here and we got them all? And he's like, yeah. He doesn't want to admit that he's a failure. So he starts asking St. Julian, theoretically, has he ever had a sole survivor or a final girl? And he's like, once, but only once. And he starts rubbing the scar on his head, showing that's the scar that the survivor. And Puzzle Man's like, some killers prefer to have a final girl or a final survivor so their legend can live on and people can tell about their horrors that they put them through. But suddenly, as the conversation is intensifying, they see some lights in the distance. But see, they ain't scared the way you think they is, because, honey, when chaos comes, this is where these killers come alive. But St. Julian says, here's what I'm gonna tell you. If one of your victims ever escaped, Puzzle Man, I would not be that concerned. It's not like they ever come back. Pretty much they're scarred for life. But that's not true. And let me say, I don't feel like that part was written right, because you couldn't pay me $1 billion to come back to the place where I was traumatized and I got away with my life by this much. And what kind of cop would bring a kid back to the crime? But we wouldn't have a plot if shit like this didn't happen in horror movies. And books too. So yeah, now the cops is busting down this community and all hell is about to break loose. And that is the end of issue 1 of Where Monsters Lie. Issue 2 of Where Monsters Lie. Also, shout out to my nails. Issue 2. Now, if you remember the last one, the cops are at the gate like, what's good, Miley? And now Puzzle Man's like, honey, the cops are here. What are we gonna do? Because usually this is where bitches like us get away. Now, see, Puzzle Man here, he's like, honey, we need to beat Skeet and Boogie. But St. Julian here, he's all cool, calm, and collected like a cucumber. And he's like, ain't it obvious what we about to do? We about to take out some pigs. But you see, this one, he's a little overly too invested. He got an agenda. So then we get a 20-year-ago flashback of when Daniel Dawson did the massacre at the first town fair. And you see, we got Granny down here. She's like, honey, the devil is very proud of you. And I'm like, oh Lord. But as Granny and Daniel Dawson's leaving thinking a job well done, honey, there's a sole survivor. And because all killers have to have at least some sole survivor to tell their legend. And it's that officer in kid version who was talking to our favorite final black boy. But once you go through shit like this, you never forget it. And of course, the cops are talking to him and they're like, the kid is named Connor Hayes. He saw his mom and sister get, murdered along with everybody else, and they're like, this kid's gonna be messed up. And the one officer's like, any chance he say who did it? And it's like, let's think about it. A serial killer's not gonna walk up to you and be like, hey, how you doing? Give you their first and last name and tell you all this information. They're trying to do a job and then keep it moving. And so the other cop is like, well, the kid said it was some big dude named Daniel Dawson. And then the cop is like, Daniel Dawson. And see, y'all, this is where we get context into who Daniel Dawson is. We get a little peek into his backstory. And he's like, isn't that the name of the kid who got thrown off the roller coaster here 20 years ago? So this is already a 20-year-ago flashback. So like 40 years ago, Daniel Dawson's origin story, he got hurt at a fair, which is somewhat like Jason Voorhees, if you think about it, because Jason was at a summer camp. He was swimming. The kids were making fun of him. He drowned and stuff like that. A place where you're supposed to have fun, a great tragedy happened. So now we move a little bit more ahead, but it's still in the past. So now it's 15 years ago. And Connor's in an orphanage because remember, Daniel Dawson at the mass tragedy at the carnival, he killed his mother and sister along with pretty much the whole community. So of course, with no legal guardians, he's in an orphanage now. And then we come into the scene where this kid is like, there's a killer in the orphanage. We have to get out of here. And the other kid is like, we can't leave without Connor. Do you know where he is? And see, Connor's throwing hands with the killer, who's also another kid. So, like a baby psychopath. And who do we find? It is Connor and St. Julian as a children. So they were both in the orphanage together. And they're fighting. And Julian, he's like, Halloween came early, so I'm gonna make a jack-o'-lantern. But Connor's like, not with me, ho. And y'all know when that adrenaline gets going, he's like, he get a grip on that lamp. And he's like, boy, I'm about to light up your life. And he gives him one of them ooh-wop-de-woo hits. I gotta put it over here. Y'all know how TikTok is. They love to censor stuff, even if it's a cartoon drawing. And if y'all remember from issue 1 and y'all was paying attention, this scene where the adult St. Julian is talking to Puzzle Man about has he ever had, a survivor of his kill. And St. Julian, remember, said, only but one, and he holds the temple of his head where he just got cracked upside his shoe. And now Connor's like, let me get out of here while I still can. So now if we fast forward to present day a little while earlier in the first issue, we see why when he was talking to our favorite final boy, when the boy was describing the killers, he was having all these flashbacks because now we know his origin. And that's why he's like, bitch, we about to shake, rattle, and roll. And now that he got his mission, he calls his girlfriend or his wife or something like that. And he's like, honey, I know you was cooking. I know we got plans, but honey, I gotta go finish some business. And they're like, bitch, what is the business? The business is revenge. But always remember, revenge and justice are two different things. So now we're outside the gates and they're like, okay, boy, which one is the house? And he points out the house, and now the search began. So as you see now, the officer's asking the final boy, okay, where's Puzzle Man's house? Because I need to know. And he's like, Puzzle Man's is the house on the end, and the old lady's is the house next to it. And then the cop is like, okay, put him back in a car. And the black kid is like, all of us. He's like, And that's why you brought me all the way here? I could have drew you a map for that shit. And the black boy's like, you about to get me killed. Instead of just putting them in a car and driving them back, he's like, put them in a car. Now let's go search this neighborhood. And he's like, pretty much the only reason why I brought the kid back to the crime scene is because I need a witness to point out where the crimes happened, so I have probable cause to enter their homes. And even the boy's like, I don't think that's how that worked, but go off. So he starts giving out orders and start at the first house and make your way around. Remember, stay in groups because Horror 101, never split up. Treat each house like it houses a serial killer or worse, and it does. So as you see, they go to the F Master's house first, and he's waiting around the corner of his. And as you see from down below, the cop is like, oh, my wife would love this garden. But they paying attention to the wrong shit because as you see, F Master, he done ran back in the house. And now he's waiting in the dark of his house for somebody to try him. And they about to try all of y'all for the low price of none. Then they knock at the lady with the dummy's house down there. And she's like, oh, we got visitors. And they take the dummy off of her hand. And she's like, I would not do that if I was y'all. Frankie does not like that. And then we get another clip of them going to the guy's house, and he's like, can I help you, officer? And I think it's interesting that he has a family back here, as you guys can see. I feel like that's going to be symbolic to something. I'm going to have to read the next issue because usually I read it and then I recap it. So it's nice and fresh in my mind. See, this guy kind of gives me a very slight, like Bob Ross or, Silver Bullets band. And then Connor, the officer, he tells his other lieutenants pretty much what you don't tell nobody in a horror scenario. You go over there and handle this. I'll handle Granny's. And I'm like... And even the officers are like, you just told us to not split up, but okay. So he knocks at the door, and Granny's like, so are you gonna come in or not? As if she'd been waiting for him, because Granny's always 2 steps ahead. She ain't new to this, she true to this. Meanwhile, at the original house, Puzzle Man is like, do you want to join me in my secret bunker so we can hide? And he's like, no, it's time for the bloodshed to begin. And then down here at Bob Ross 2.0 house, girl, he talking about it's hammer time, and next thing you know, he start playing Duck Duck Goose with a hammer in their head. He gets his point across. Meanwhile, why do the cops take the crazy ventriloquist to the same cop car as our OnlyFans? What the fuck? Our final boy. Like, he puts a killer with the survivor who just escaped that crazy ass neighborhood. I just need a moment of silence for that dumb shit. And the boy's like, you can't put this bitch up in here. He's like, she's like, I'm what? Dangerous? I didn't used to be. And that's giving us a little foreground into her backstory. She was like, I used to be a survivor too, until he killed everyone I knew. All her friends and family. I got away when I hit him with a truck, but he came back. And he's like, what? And she's like, that's true love. And the boy's like, who is you talking about her? She's like, no matter what I did, he just kept coming back. And by now we know she's talking about the ventriloquist. But I feel like, of course, she has some ticky boom boom up in her head and she crazy. However, I feel like, what if it's like a Chucky type lore where one of her lovers was crazy and a killer and he's possessing that dummy. Next thing you know, Frankie come out of nowhere showing that this doll is alive and he starts slicing and dicing, talking in the name of love, which clearly confirms the supernatural elements of this story too. Meanwhile, they get to a Puzzle Man in St. Julian's door. I think this is St. Julian's house. Even the cop is like, this is an unorganizational nightmare, a real half-ass job, and they really about to be half-ass. Because they're like, ding dong, and then St. Julian is like, bitch, I'm here. And then Pack Rat is like, ooh, that's really impressive. And Julian's like, boy, I don't give a damn what you think. Easy Pack Rat, he just be coming out of nowhere. I think that's why his name is Rat too, because, rats are sneaky. So now the head sheriff guy, he's up in the granny's house, aka G-Way house. And he's like, you try anything funny, ho? It's on and popping. And she's like, oh, you know about me, huh? He pretty much tell her, I've been having a file on you. I saw you at the carnival when you was with that crazy Dawson dude who did that mass murder. And then he was like, I've also over the years been seeing you in a lot of crime scenarios. You've been in a lot of hit and runs where cars didn't have drivers per se. And he's like, turns out you ran a pretty dangerous motel in the 60s. And then down here he's like, and you haven't aged a bit. So what's really going on? And she's like, that's healthy living for you. Why she lighting up a Virginia Slim? And the officer, he's like, I know there's actually monsters in the world. Believe me, I've been seeing this shit all my life. He's like, I done seen spirits when I was younger and all this shit. I know crazy shit existing. And he's telling her, ever since the trauma I went through as a kid, I've been building my body into something greater and stronger than what monsters are made of. He's like, I've trained my body to peak performance, and pretty much he's made himself into a human weapon. He's like, I have studied the paranormal. He went into great detail for this moment of him to get revenge. And Granny's like, I know. I know I've been keeping tabs on you because one thing about a villain, they gonna keep tabs on somebody who could have the potential to take them down one day. She's like, massacre victims become special agents, monster hunter. Very impressive. Pretty much being sarcastic like, honey, I could have seen this was gonna be your life trajectory. Usually when trauma or something bad happens to people, that's what gives them the motivation. He's somewhat taken aback because he's like, this is just an old hoe. But she's like, what's wrong, dear? You surprised I know who you are? Honey, because one thing about G-Way over here, she gonna do her work. She's like, we like to keep close tabs on our final girls. You never know what use they might serve one day. We switch back to outside, and why the dummy open up the door for his psychopathic girl. And then he says to the boy, hi friend, would you like to get stabbed today? And remember, only her side is unlocked because it's a cop car in the back. See, this boy knew he shouldn't have returned back. Part 3 down below. So the dummy comes to go get his psychotic owner, and next thing you know, he's like, hi friend, would you like to be stabbed today? And like anybody with common sense, the boy is like, I most certainly would not. And now the cops are finally yelling, we got officers down, as if this wasn't the Hunger Games for these killers now. But it's too late, because you already see what old girl with the dummy is grabbing for. She about to do that ultimate clapback. Next thing you know, she having a shootout, and then the clown, he's like, well, what's all this racket? As if there hasn't been chaos for these last 15 minutes since these cops been here. And the clown is like, this is it. This is my time to shine. Because remember, in the first issue, I was already telling y'all how he's been feeling lackluster. So he's like, honey, let me see what bag of tricks I got for these pigs. As always, our final boy got common sense. As he hit a bullets flying, he's running. He's hitting the brick. I'm out of here because, honey, there is no time to be a hero when you gotta save your own life. Live to fight another day. Like my people used to say, honey, don't ever ask me to jump in front of a bullet for you, because if there's time for me to jump in front of the bullet, there's time for your ass to get out the way. And he's getting out the way. And I would just like a running gag of him always escaping with his life by the skin of his teeth. Because let's be real, this final boy, he's surrounded by all these people. He like, these hoes is crazy like glue. So he comes upon this house in the woods and he's looking at it and he's like, let me go in here. And I'm like, you too smart to do that. You too smart to do that. But I guess when you got chaos outside, finding somewhere inside is your only option, because or you could just run the way you did when you escaped the last time. But yeah. But I just think with those bullets flying, he's like, I just need to duck and cover. I need some type of cover. So he goes into this abandoned barn and he's like, he sees this big ass cage that has something with an eye looking out of it. And he's like, what is this? And then he hears a growl. And then he's all of us if you black. He's like, honey, hell no. F that, I'm out. And I was like, that is the most relatable shit I've ever seen of a black character in comic books, especially in a horror comic, because they're not that often in, surviving horror, and let alone in a horror comic book. So I'm not gonna lie, this character, as of right now, he's written really well. He doesn't do too much, but he does just enough where it's like, bitch, I see you. I relate, because I would do exactly what you did. But yeah, old girl with the dummy, she's still having a blast out with the cops, while the dummy looking out the window like, you go, baby girl. And then here come motherfucking Bozo, Krusty the Clown. And he's like, hi, everyone, check this out. And he just makes some bacon because he puts a flamethrower on these pigs. Talking about this joke is hot. But he's living for this because, like I said, he was feeling lackluster. So now he's like, this has revitalized his dark ass heart. Meanwhile, back with the conversation that G-Way Granny is having with Connor, Granny's like, honey, Daniel Dawson, he loves to have somebody get away just in case there might need to be a reunion. But Granny's like, since you asking for him, I didn't think you were the type to be, you can see the word up there because, TikTok. And Connor's like, you don't think I can stop him? And Granny's like, did you bring a tank? And then she's like, honey, nothing short of tearing him apart will stop him. And he does not tear easy. Because, he ain't going to let you get that close to him. And Granny's getting all up into his head. She's like, why did you come here? To prove that you ain't a coward? She's like, I could tell you the answer, because back in the day when you was hiding while your mom and sister was getting murdered, honey, you already signed that deal. She's like, hiding while your people get murdered is not the origin of a hero. And he's like, I can admit my wrongs. He's like, all this training and hyper-masculinity, all this shit was out of fear. And Granny's like, honey, I think when you come face to face with these monsters, you'll find yourself one. And I feel like that also goes into those sayings where they be like, if you look into darkness too long, darkness will be staring back. And then he gives off the speech. Y'all can read it if y'all want. But he's pretty much saying, I met a girl. I have a happy life who makes life worth living. I want to make sure the world is safe for her and all of us. So she was like, I can't have you maniacs running around like this. I'm gonna round all you hoes up and put y'all in the ground. You ain't the hunters today. You're not the monsters here. But then if you look down there, he hears the gunshot finally. And I'm like, with all the chaos that's been happening, how are you just now hearing that? And they literally live in like a cul-de-sac, a suburb. A hillbilly suburb, but it's still a suburb. Or per se, a country suburb. So when he hears that, now he's like, maybe I should go out there and help my people that I sent out here into this death match. And he tells Granny, now you stay here, ho. We're far from finished. And of course she's gonna listen to him because why not? Girl, she grabs her card again, and then the boy in the back, he's like, honey, time to go, Zell. Let's get out of here. And he finally sees the chaos that has been unleashed while he was trying to get his swan song off. You really jumped in over your head. And he's like, what the hell? But little does he know, he has a reunion coming up behind him. The two orphan brothers will face off.